Welcome everyone to a casted game for Age of Empires 4, and today spawning in the north corner of the map playing in orange, we've got Corvinus 1 playing as the Japanese, and his opponent in the south. Playing in purple, we've got giveuanxiety playing as the Jeanne faction. Welcome everyone to Cliffside. That's the map for today. It's an interesting map, I think in many ways in one, because it's one of these maps that you can really turn into what you want it to be, especially with the map layout and the walls. So walls are pretty kind of cheap in Age of Empires 4, but it's very difficult to fully wall up on Cliffside in the early stages, and so there's often a little bit of early aggression. The good thing is that in the late game, it's relatively easy to wall up, and even if you really want to be greedy, you can wall up in the early game too, but it's a heavy wood investment in terms of going all the way across. Also, it's a bit tricky because if you do wall up the middle part, which is probably where you want to start, because this is kind of the main entrance point really, right? It's a direct entrance to your opponent. It's probably the one thing you want to stop early on if you want to play a bit more greedy. The only thing about this matchup though, the Japanese versus the Jeanne d'Arc, it's not really a matchup that you often associate with greed. Possibly the Japanese. Jeanne d'Arc though would look to be very aggressive, and she currently hunting food. The real concern for the Japanese in this situation is that, well, when you go up against cavalry heavy cavalry based civs, whether it be the French, the Veruss, or in this case Jeanne d'Arc, you have to factor in, well, what's your way of dealing with those knights? Of course, you've got the spin, which pretty much every civilization will have. And where you follow that up with, it's a bit tricky with the Japanese in terms of their power spikes. It feels like their big power spike is in the mid-Castle Age and sort of late Imperial Age, when you get plenty of food and just spam out units. So they're going to have to survive. They're going to have to find a way to deal with these knights that will be coming in pretty quickly. They do have a couple of options. I mean, 2 town centers feels a little bit greedy with the Japanese. Having said that though, if they do upgrade those town centers, they can get an extra arrow slit, which is certainly useful, and can be nice as a static defense. It feels a little bit greedy against Jeanne d'Arc and how aggressive they can be, especially when you factor in the play styles. So giveuanxiety, we know him. He is incredibly aggressive as a player. And so, he's got one of the aggressive civs in his hands. So I'd be very surprised if we were to see a second town center from Corvinus and the Japanese. Going to be going up with the Cura Storehouse. No real surprises there. It's very popular as the landmark of choice for the Japanese. You tend not to see Shinobi or the Cocker Township unless it's a hybrid map. And even then, sometimes you don't. School of Cavalry, no doubt about that one. Going to go for the early cavalry on the field and look to put some pressure. The issue with the Japanese, they've got a decision to make. It does feel like in January, in this matchup, the Jeanne d'Arc faction is going to be calling the shots. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to do what they want to do, which is, get those knights out. Now, Corvinus is going to have to find a response. Does he go for a feudal age kind of boom with 2 town centers and try and be a bit greedy and just try and out-eco his opponent in the feudal age and just outlive him? Or does he look to maybe go for a fast castle? And he's already going to go for an outpost on the stone, and that suggests that there possibly is a build for a fast castle here, because you tend not to want to be too preoccupied about gold if you're going to go for a heavy feudal age. I mean, sure, you want some upgrades, but whether you would invest a tower into it, I'm not so sure. So it does feel like maybe Corvinus could be thinking about going for a fast castle. I love the switch into berries if that is the case, because ultimately you want to get as much food as you possibly can. Of course, Castle Age is very heavy on the food requirements. And so it feels like already in this early stage of the game, 4.5 minutes in, it does feel like Corvinus could be trying to go for that fast castle. He's going to be fast about it though, because there's a lot of these knights. Now you might be wondering, what does Castle Age give you? When you go to the next stage, you have to wonder, what is it going to give you? Well, the Japanese, they have a very unique unit, the Honor Musha. It's a cavalry-based unit, but it's also, well, it's kind of like a crossbow on horseback. It's pretty effective at dealing with knights, so I'm pretty excited to see that one. I have to say, it's a little bit... this is a little bit tricky. He might actually get a villager here if he's not careful. It does garrison inside, and he's going to get that outpost pretty quickly there. Geo can just camp here, by the way. This will be a nice place to actually get some vision. I think he does see this. And the vision on knights isn't all that great, so it's just enough there. He has to cancel the outpost, in fact, and maybe look to build it elsewhere. I could possibly get arrow slits. That's always an option there for Corvinus. Or he's already got it, in fact. He's actually already got it preemptively, which makes sense. It's a good shout. But double knight coming in does mean they can tank and a little bit dive in there. But Corvinus has to be careful. But on that thought, with the Jeanne d'Arc having to go up against the Japanese, maybe go for a fast castle and the Honor Musha. One thing to consider though is that the French do typically go for this knight archer combination, which means that the Honor Musha can get caught Of course, the Onimusha, they do have that fast movement speed, which will certainly help the way around the enemy base. And considering this is a relatively, in many ways, an open map, like the Onimusha could just come around the sides, and that's always an option to raid with. So you have to push off those barriers. One good thing about Corvinus' situation is that GUA really focused on the gold early on, and thankfully for Corvinus, he's actually managed to get most of the barriers because he doesn't actually have that much food there. Which is just as well, because he's going to need that food on the farms. Go for that boar. So Jeanne will be getting that extra little bit of XP to level up with. Has gone for the melee swordsman line of things. And it's a good thing that they get the Cura storehouse, I've got to say, because there's not really that much food underneath the town centre. So it's definitely going to rely on the farms and is now back on to gold. Got 9 villages on gold, so that's really telegraphing that fast castle strategy. Now, where does GUA go? He's going to go for a second stable, so he's really going to double down on that feudalage, and it's understandable. Now, bear in mind that the knights are very expensive in gold, so at any point, if he does really gear up his economy in this way, he can actually look to get all the economies on the pockets, like just the deer over here, maybe even be greedy with the boar, because his opponent is being very turtle. Like, he can't really branch out with the units he's got. Well, he doesn't really have any units here, Corvinus. But even once he does, he's not necessarily going to have the huge amounts of mobility unless he does go for the Onimusha, which I suspect is going to be the case. In any case, there's a long time between now and then, so he's going to go for the boar and get that precious food, which is just as well, because if you're going for double stable knight production, it's going to be expensive. Now, speaking about expensive, Jeanne could consecrate those buildings, making the food cost a little bit cheaper on those knights. The defense has been solid though for Corvinus, hasn't lost a single villager, has had a bit of idle time, but ultimately, with a strategy like this, you're going to expect that at least. The main thing is to not lose any villagers. It's going to get the other boar as well, so XP going to be rolling in for Jeanne. Bear in mind though, GUA does have to make an assessment. At one point, he's going to have to think about going to the castle age himself, and that's going to be the situation where he feels like he can't get too much value. And I think in the next 5-10 minutes, there's going to be a situation where GUA is going to think, well, look, am I actually going to do any damage here, or am I just going to be out-teched? Because if I keep going into knights, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, because of course he can then scale pretty nicely into castle age, obviously getting those upgrades. That's one thing that's great about the French and the French feudal knights. You can obviously just upgrade them in the castle age. Puccio, thank you for the subscription for tier 1. Thank you, appreciate that. Very, very kind of you. Hope you're having a good day. As with everyone, oh, it's looking at divine restoration. So we're going to heal up those knights and move on further forward and look to, now we can actually probably do some damage, because even if the village is garrisoned inside the outpost, it does feel like you could probably burn one down or two. And you might look to just do that. It's going to back away for now though, actually, which is understandable. Has consecrated the School of Cavalry, so knights will be coming out a little bit cheaper. And there is the floating gate landmark for the Japanese. Expected, you want that. It's a good time, I've got to say. 9 minutes on the clock for a castle age for the Japanese, considering the pressure he's been under. It's a decent time now. He's going to be able to get some of those Yorishiro out. The question is, where does he put them? Does he put it in the town centre? Could possibly. That'll give him a 25% extra buffering production of... but it looks like he's going to go for the archer range. And it is indeed straight away into Onimusha. That's a problem for the French, because these guys will be countered, these knights, very heavily. It does mean GUA has another decision to make. Does he go for an archery range? Which he probably needs to, actually, at this point, because he's going to be raided very heavily if he doesn't. The knights almost feel like they don't get that much value at this point, and GUA has been playing into Corvinus' hands somewhat. Also got steeled arrow, so that'll help with the Onimusha. There we are. Now, the great thing about the Yorishiro is that this actually is going to be increasing the production speed by 200%. Which is a phenomenal amount. It's going to really pump out these numbers now, which is looking good. Bear in mind as well, now that he's in the castle age, he can look to pick up some of those all-important relics off the map, and that'll really scale up their economy. But the one thing consideration that needs to be made, he's going to be running out of food here, Corvinus, very soon. So he does have a couple of farms with the Cura storehouse, which is absolutely fantastic in this regard of gathering that food. But it's going to need a bit of a food transition, or farming transition, I should say. Which ultimately is not necessarily terrible for the Japanese. It's just about timing, right? Because it will hinder his ability to pump out units, but ultimately the Japanese, they want those farms. Especially when you get it underneath the town centre, you'll be able to get the Daimyo Mana and upgrade, and going to be getting the faster gathering rate on those farms. It's housed a little bit, night diving in a little bit, but it has got the walls up and will be picked apart by the Onimusha, right? These guys, he might get one villager. I think no, he won't actually. Garrison inside. That knight really got taken down pretty quickly, I got to say. Nice play there by Corvinus. Nice strategy in terms of how to counter the Jeanne d'Arc faction. You just got to survive until you get that castle age. And the question now is, where do we go from here? I suspect Jeanne will be going to the castle age. In fact, yeah, we can see the food income really starting to head in that direction. He's getting iron under mesh as well, and possibly getting some archery ranges. So there's the first archery range, an archer coming out already. He's going to need to mass them up, but there's a situation in the game where now, all of a sudden, corvinus actually has a lot of map control, has a lot of positioning. Might be able to get some raiding here, picking off an archer pretty cheaply, and a second too, which is a great play there. He wants to make sure those numbers of archers don't pick up. And this is where things have reversed. Jeanne had a lot of map control, putting some pressure, now it's the other way. Still a good number of knights, does get a good charge there, picks off one of them at least. And, well, it's looking good. He's going to back away now, corvinus, and maybe just pick off a couple of knights on the way. But I've got to say, the move speed for the Onamusha, a little bit underwhelming there. Interesting. Okay, it's actually the same as the knight. Which, I mean, to be fair, that makes it a little bit more equally... I mean, it makes it a little bit easier though for Jiwei and the knights, right? It makes them a situation where they're not constantly being chased down. But still, it's better having Onamusha than crossbow, that's for sure. Double archery range, and, well, he's going to be making sure he gets a good mass of archers to deal with those Onamusha. Uses the Divine Restoration ability there, Jeanne, just to heal up those knights, and walls coming up now for corvinus as well. Going to be protecting that back gold and the deer camp, and walling up on the west side too. Just as well, though, because he's run out of food underneath his town centre. Does have a second Yorishiro inside that town centre. Going to be increasing the villager production speed by 25%, so his economy should scale quite nicely. There's always a chance that Jeanne might opt to go for a second town centre just to, well, not so much match it, but even outproduce. Jiwei, plenty of villagers on wood. Now, that'll be doing two things. Helping supply the production for archers, but also maybe thinking about getting a farm transition eventually as well. Although, I suspect the real aim for the French variant civilization Jeanne is to pump out units rather than invest in farms at this point, just so we can protect these food sources, the deer and the boar. Onamusha still in good numbers though. Knights trying to harass that gold vein, which they will get some value in terms of idling villagers. Might get some villagers there on the Cura storehouse. Bear in mind, you can only garrison 4 villagers in the Cura storehouse recently. It's a new change on the latest patch. Makes things a little bit more scary going up against the knights. Knights diving in and going past the town centre. The only problem is that Onamusha have caught up a little bit and dishing out all sorts of damage. It has taken into some horsemen as well, which will work quite well against the Onamusha, but it's got to get close enough to them. He's able to take advantage of some berries too, corvinus, so good food sources coming in for him. Still in the feudal age though, Jiwei, but plenty of food and gold coming in. He's got to time it well, right? He doesn't want to commit to the castle age too quickly. He needs a standing army to do so. Still looking to poke and prod and do some damage, but hasn't really been able to do as much as he would have wanted to. Has killed 5 villagers though, so over time it has been working decently well for him. Survival techniques is in for Jiwei. That'll be getting that food a little bit quicker on the deer camp. And there's that farming transition. Divine Restoration comes in once again there for Jeanne. And she actually consecrated the archer range too. Ooh, relic being brought in. So 2 relics already there for corvinus. That's the benefit of going for the castle age a little bit quicker. Onamusha going down the right. This is actually what we talked about, how on cliffside you can get those flanking opportunities, and it's something that Jiwei needs to be careful at. He's actually going to move out at possibly the worst possible time, considering what's heading his way. There's quite a few villages exposed. Now bear in mind, Jiwei is going to be coming up against a Japanese that's pretty well walled up, and he's taking into the mounted samurai, which I actually quite love, because he's going to be going up against French feudal knights, which, you know, samurai will definitely do well against that. Needs to catch up to them, though. So just to let you guys know, if you're watching on YouTube, I have been streaming a lot more on Twitch. In fact, we're streaming live today, so everyone in Twitch chat, Mr. Merlin, I see you. Hope you guys are all doing well. And if you're watching on YouTube and want to catch me live at some point, it's worth checking out. I'll leave a link in the video description if you do want to pop by and say hi. That's a lot of cavalry, though. Going to be taking out the archer range, which is a bit of an unfortunate situation because he will lose that Yorishiro. Now, that Yorishiro will come back again. You can get a maximum of 4 at the moment in the recent patch, I believe. for the Japanese. Pushes that cavalry away for now with the mounted samurai, but there's a lot of archers. The archers won't do great against the mounted samurai, but picking off the Onimusha at least. And just massing up large numbers. Jiwei now getting to the castle agent behind this is going to get that guild hall toggled onto food. The amount of stone it gathers recently, as well in the most recent patch, has been nerfed, so the tendency to toggle it onto stone for spamming keeps it's happening a little less often. Onimusha going down the west side hasn't been able to get that much value so far. Only killed one villager, although now that might change. But Jiwei, he's paying attention, moving those villagers away from barriers. Does lose one in the end, though. Possibly going to lose a bit more. So enough there to one-shot, which is kind of nice for the Corvinus. He's actually going to lose a lot more. Should get another one. Does get another one. Backs away for now. And Corvinus walling up means it's nice and safe and secure. Bringing home another relic. 2 relics being brought back already. 2 more coming in soon. And this is a tricky situation for Jeanne, I gotta say, because she's kind of lost out on the relics and not really gained too much of that extended feudal age. Although, did delay that farming transition. But overall, when it does rely on farming transitions, the Japanese will have a one-up on that with the Daimyo Mana likely to be in play. We'll just check on that if it has happened yet. Divine Restoration comes in, and the cavalry charge in. Takes out the Onimusha, a couple of XP units coming in there for Jeanne, and she has just upgraded herself to the Knight. That's definitely going to be helpful in the game. Now that Jeanne is in the castle age, expect to kind of get those sacred sites. Bear in mind, Jeanne can capture them. Unless that's changed on the most recent patch, but I don't believe it has. Gets a siege workshop, which is a nice addition, especially considering the number of archers that are coming out for Jiwei. I love the kind of interplay of units that kind of back and forth here. We started off with the French Royal Knights, countered by the Onimusha, countered by the archers from the French, and then went into the mounted samurai. Japanese are now also getting a siege workshop, likely for some mangonels, which again will be doubling down on those archer numbers. Got to be careful about the horseman numbers though, that's kind of dangerous there. Gonna go for a second town centre, Jiwei. Recognizing that his opponent has a Yorishiro inside that town centre. So he's going to be wanting to catch up on the village count a little bit. And give it time. He'll end up actually having more villages than the Japanese. But Jeanne is moving out. Veterancy comes in too. I do love the choice, by the way, for the guild hall. There's always been a tendency to go for the Royal Institute. Well, that's changed recently, and for good reason, especially on this kind of map and this matchup. Because I think this is going to go to a late game. Kind of expect it in terms of the way the game is flowing. Especially with the second town centre coming up for Jeanne. It's unlikely that she'll be putting a killer blow anytime soon. Does have a lot of units, but the Japanese have got plenty of armoured units. And in terms of production capabilities, it's so strong for the Japanese, pumping out units quickly. Especially when you've got the Yorishiro inside a stable and an archery range. We've even got a siege workshop. Now, from earlier, we do have the Daimyo Mana. Going to be increasing that farm and gather rate by 25%. Also giving that extra villager and arrow slit. Also increasing the HP on that town centre. It makes it very difficult to take out without siege. Ooh, 1 mounted samurai, or 2 mounted samurai causing a bit of problem. Wallow going up in the north. Won't get. I don't think he gets anything out of this, but wait, he might. There's Jeanne's champions. Just about gets out of there, and Corvinus unlucky on that one. Doesn't manage to get any conversions, but take a look at that. Holy Wrath comes out for Jeanne. She's kind of bugging out a little bit, getting a little bit too excited. But actually, might lose those relics in the end. I don't think they're going to be able to come back into the monastery. It's a good pick off here by Jiwei, causing a lot of havoc, and that's a lot of units. Japanese are struggling here a little bit. Mounted samurai coming in from the west. Holy Wrath ability gets deployed once again, but Jeanne should go down. She does go down. But again, that's a lot of units there for Jeanne, and she's still fighting away those units that are popping out from the stable and the archer range. The big problem for Corvinus and the Japanese is the units as soon as they come out, they're getting sniped. Although the numbers now are starting to thin down, and the archers are becoming a little bit less relevant in the fight here for Jeanne, especially with the mounted samurai numbers coming out. Eventually this will get cleared up, but bear in mind how much damage is being done, not only in terms of villager kills, but also the idle time being caused here. It's pretty good here for Jiwei. He might need to back off sooner. rather than later, because he's not going to get all that much more value from here on in, at least. Plenty of villagers on gold, and with 2 relics in the bag, obviously 2 did come out and wasn't able to get any wallows of that. He's going to want to get those back into the monastery ASAP. That gold income is going to be important. Mounted Samurai getting some more value there by Corvinus, and this is the benefit of being walled up. It means you can venture out and be relatively secure, although he did take a couple of a bit of a battering earlier on. But nothing killer, right? Without siege, it's very difficult to push the Japanese. Oh, Mounted Samurai coming down the south. Takes him out. It looks like Arbitrator coming out, which is nice. That's going to be helpful against those Mounted Samurai, that's for sure. Oh, there we go. Holy Wrath comes out there on those Mounted Samurai. That's a decent number of mangonels, though. Well, at least one. I'm sure he's going to get more. Some queued up there already. That's actually a lot of investment into siege here for Corvinus. Bear in mind that the archer numbers have been pretty much taken out for Jeanne. Maybe anticipating the Arbitrator numbers. Which I love the switch, by the way. Arbitrator are incredibly strong and they scale really well into the late game. When you factor in Gambesons getting an extra 4 melee armor, that's an incredible tech for the French and for Jeanne. That is for sure. Ooh, getting a farmhouse on the berries. Mangonel deploys on the Arbitrator. Doesn't actually get hit on there, I don't think. That's a lot of Mounted Samurai. The horsemen thinking about diving in, but it's not really a fight that the Jeanne can take. Despite having 34 military, I don't think they're all together. They're not cohesive in a single force. And you can definitely say that the Japanese are. Heading forward with 2 relics as well, Corvinus. What's going on here? This is kind of, I gotta say, this is brave, because you go forward like this and take the relics with you. There's always an opportunity and always a chance that they won't come back. And that'll be a bit of a gift to your opponent. I mean, talk about commitment to the fight. Very risky taking 2 relics like this. I guess he feels confident he can win it. We'll have to see if that confidence is a good shout or not. Moving forward, going to try and torch down some of these archer ranges, which is a good start, by the way, taking out the production buildings. Definitely a good way of causing havoc. And the main thing is that, I mean, Jiwei is going to need to reinvest in these production buildings if these do get taken down. He does have a bit of a bank of wood, so should be okay. But again, this is aggression that you probably won't want to see coming in for too long. There's a Springald Horseman and Arbitrator behind. Jeanne's champions are out too, and we'll be looking to push that back. It does have a decent army, I've got to say. Jiwei with 49 militaries, looking strong to push this back, and all of a sudden, Corvinus getting a bit nervous about this push, and understandably so. Does have a couple of rams, which will, again, probably have more success if there is a push in compared to what Jiwei was able to do. Trouble is, he might not even be able to push in. He's actually going to get pushed back by the 2 Springalds. No Springalds of his own, Corvinus. No real way to snipe out that Springald. Could dive in with the Mounted Samurai, but that would be a bit of a commitment. He's out onto the boar and the deer camp on the east side, so definitely going to be making the most of that. He's slowly gathering stone as well, so maybe itching towards that Daimyo Palace. Going to be losing a Springald there. Which is a bit unfortunate for the Japanese. That's the only Springald they had. At least the only Springald on the front lines. He's starting to move further forward now, which is kind of scary. Jiwei, though, does have that second town centre, so the economy will be looking strong. Looks like the Japanese just staying on 1 town centre for now, but they're going to push hard and maybe do some damage here. Mangonel could deploy on the Arbitrator. I think the Mangonels are going to be the key difference maker. If the Springals can get on top of the Mangonels, and he does get 1 already, gets 60 XP for that. Mangonels does deploy on the Arbitrator. A couple of them do die. But again, the Mangonels can't really deploy easily. Could get another shot on the Mangonels. Doesn't quite manage it. There's a bit of an issue though, Giveuanxiety. He needs to deal with those rams, but if he commits to the rams, and there's a lot of military there, can be focusing on Jeanne's army. Mangonel deploy. Only one Springle though for the Japanese. You feel that's not quite enough. Takes another Mangonel out. Now the fight's totally changed. With only one Mangonel, you feel like the Arbaletier could push forward. In fact, that Mangonel has been already hit once. Gets one more hit and it will go down, but that's not the real main focus of the fight. The Onimusha trying to get value. Horseman going to dive on top of that. Wallow coming out for the Japanese, but one of the... That's rough. One of the monks, both of the monks go down, and these two relics, a bit of a relic donation. And the Onimusha, there's no real heavily armored units now, so they're becoming a little less relevant. Still one Mangonel, but that will go down pretty quickly. Holy Wrath comes out, but again, there's only so much Jeanne can do on her own. Wait, the Mangonel's not taken down. It has now. There's a good cleanup by the French and Jeanne's faction, but unfortunately, take a look at this. Gone up to the blast cannon level there, Jeanne, and this is not looking great for Corvinus. Lost that push, and guess what? He's down to 4 military. The big problem for him is he lost so much into that. Lost the units, and he lost 2 relics. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Giveuanxiety. I don't want to say Giveuanxiety. I don't know. I'm turning French all of a sudden. I wouldn't be surprised to see if he gets those 2 relics in the bag pretty quickly. Bit of a donation there by Corvinus, I gotta say. Sometimes there's a fine line between genius and craziness. But hey, if it worked, we'd definitely be saying he's a genius. Moving forward, Giveuanxiety. Going to be looking to torch down that archery range, and this is going to be looking rough for Corvinus. He invested a lot in that extra fight, and Giveuanxiety going to be looking to make him pay. Now, he doesn't necessarily have that much in the way of siege, but he does have Jeanne d'Arc, and she does a lot of siege damage. 200 plus damage on buildings. 2 Springalds. Again, this is going to be so difficult for Corvinus to deal with, even if he gets a Mangonel, which he does, by the way. 2 Springalds there is the perfect number for Giveuanxiety. Jumps on top of that, and even if the Springle didn't take him out, the Horseman would have. Onimusha there, going to look try and snipe out Jeanne, but Jeanne is so tanky at this stage. It's looking tricky for Corvinus on the backline, though. He does have 2 mounted samurai. Quite a few of those villages are going to go down if he's not careful. Going to need to get a couple of arbitrary here. But he split up his army on the west side. Cavalry run through onto that wood line. Arbaletier on the backline, looking to snipe out a couple of those spearmen popping out from the production buildings. The big problem for Corvinus is this army from Giveuanxiety just camping out the production, so any spearmen that come out, instantly being sniped. And that is looking pretty rough, I gotta say. Diamond Palace is in, so the farms would be working faster if they were being worked on. All those villagers garrisoned inside, and this is not looking great for Corvinus. Gotta say though, Giveuanxiety doesn't have that much in the way of siege, so once again in this push, whilst he's causing idle time, whilst he's killing villagers, he's not necessarily doing infrastructural damage, which is what you really want to do. And I would love to see the Arbaletier get a couple of rams there built on the front lines if he's got siege engineering. We have to quickly check that if he does. He doesn't quite yet, and I think that's the big difference maker in the situation. Like, it's not going to kill the Japanese off, and if you don't kill the Japanese off, there's always a risk they might come back to bite you. Horsemen going to dive on those Onimusha. Not much else there in terms of spearmen, or they do come in now, and the spearmen are going to push away those horsemen. But again, Corvinus he's lost some time in terms of gathering rates, but there's nothing too drastic. With 2 Springalds, well, Corvinus should be able to hold off against any siege push coming in terms of at least Mangonels, but what we really want to see from Giveuanxiety is a couple of rams. Maybe they don't have to come through the front. Maybe they can come through the back. Still Arbaletier tanking out here. Something that, well, Corvinus has to deal with. Does have a couple of spearmen. Does use the Holy Wrath ability. Jeanne now looking strong, and well, this is buying time for Giveuanxiety to maybe think about the Imperial Age. It's always a possibility, especially with the farming transition coming in. Food should be good, and let's take a look at the guild hall. What's it actually on? Is it on food? He is on food. I think he might have actually drawn some in. That would account for that high food count. But Japanese have started to rebuild those numbers again, and you know, he's recuperating, he's recovering. Mangonel comes out at the right possible time, best possible time. Arbaletier back away. Not much here to snipe it for Giveuanxiety. I think at this point, these Arbaletier are going to not be able to make an escape, right? They're kind of stuck here, and it's kind of okay as long as he makes most of them. Tries to maybe get some... Oh, he does have 2 Springalds, actually. I didn't spot that. Maybe he can try and snipe out the Mangonel, push out. But yeah, he's going to just make sure that corvinus stays at home. And, well, whilst the arbitrator won't get too much more value in terms of raw villager kills or military kills, what it will do is allow Giveu to buy some time, build up the forces on the front, either to push again, once again, or take up to the Imperial Age. It seems like he's going to do the former. Look to pack on a punch on the front lines with Horseman and Arbaletier. It's a nice combination, I gotta say. Arbaletier perfect against heavily armored units, and even spearmen to an extent. The Horseman will tank on that front line, but he's got to be careful about the number of spearmen that are on the field for the Japanese. So that's a large number of them. Especially when you factor in that they do have the possibility of getting the Nagayari, giving them a stronger spear that increases weapon range by 20% and damage against cavalry by 20%. So it's a strong upgrade for the Japanese. The Horsemen don't really stand a chance. The only way they can really outmaneuver, I guess they can outmaneuver them. But when you are the Japanese and you've walled up like you have now, ultimately there's nowhere to outmaneuver them to. There's no other way in. But they're just on the east side. What are these guys up to? Gone for the gold in the end. And oh, that's kind of smart. Wait, did he spot that? Did he spot the monk and decide actually you want to move out temporarily? Just not to get spotted? Quite possibly. Mangonel deploys for the Japanese. Going to be pushing through with the spearmen now. Arbaletier might start poking them out, and they're doing just that. Horsemen don't need to back it. They can't charge that. Wait, he's going to charge that? Is he really going to do that? Those horsemen are going to absolutely melt to those spearmen. He does back away. The Arbaletier now are getting them off, but here come another group of spearmen. Yeah, those horsemen, they can't challenge that. Not yet, anyway. Spearman numbers just too good there for the Japanese. Although, yeah, those guys are dead. And the Mangonel should be fine now. Gets another shot. I think Giveu must have looked away for a second there. Must have looked at the back, because he didn't really manage that fight there for a second. He lost all the horsemen. So, having said that, Mangonel's pretty exposed. Giveu, if he spots that, might get a Mangonel pretty cheaply. Well, he will get it cheaply because it's also a Springald. Nicely done. Getting the forward gold. Now, gold is actually an issue for the Japanese. You can see how risky he's having to be for that gold in the map. But he does have a lot of villages there at least, so he's going to get the gold at least for now. And wait, will he lose Jeanne? No, he won't. Jeanne's just... Wait. Yes, he will. Giveu, what are you doing? Get out of there. Gets surrounded. She does die, but she does take out the monastery. I think there's only one relic in there anyway, but Jeanne has fallen. She's probably coming back onto the field anytime soon anyway. Oh, well, there you go. It was only temporary, no problem. She's arisen for the dead. That's a lot of Arbaletier, though. Got to be scary at this situation. Corvinus coming in with mass spearmen. And village count looking great for Giveu, I got to say. Now, I don't really like the fact he hasn't got the west side sacred site. I'd love to see him get that because it just adds another layer of pressure for the Japanese. Especially when he's got a mobile unit like Jeanne, just capture that sacred site, start the ticking timer, get a little bit extra gold. It won't necessarily be the game changer, the gold income from that. But what it does do is it forces Corvinus to maybe think about having to push out a little bit earlier than maybe he would love to. And there's the Shogunate Castle. It's a great way to increase the food production for your Japanese farms, I've got to say. 75% extra is absolutely incredible. But Corvinus, paying attention, keeping those gold villages alive, and this is an important part of the game, by the way. Having that awareness of where your villages are, how exposed they can be at all times. That's 17 villages. You can imagine if these Arbaletier got on top of that, that would be a massive slaughter for sure. This is where things become a little bit tricky though for Corvinus. Gold income going to be cut off in many ways. I'd love to see if Giveu could think about getting to that Imperial Age now. I think it's going to be going up there because he's got a lot of food and a lot of gold in the bank. With this level of food, I wouldn't be surprised to see if the guild hall was toggled to stone, even with the reduced income from the recent patch. We're stonewalling it up. Looks like Jeanne playing it for the late game. And there's still... This is actually an interesting choice. Because is he really going to play this for the late game? It's kind of scary seeing Japanese in the late game, I gotta say. Especially when you factor in their food economy and how much they can spam units out. Speaking of which, Onabagation going on the west side, and maybe look to get a bit of a raid. Now, we talked about it earlier on the cast, how this map can be tailored to your needs, and the mid-map, well, the middle of the game, mid-castle age, late castle age, you can start to wall up. I wasn't expecting stone walls, I gotta say that much. But Giveu, he is walling up half the map. Trouble is, if you don't wall up all the map, this can happen. Giveu can get raided by the Onabagation. Red Palace coming up there for Giveu. In a really nice spot, I've got to say. Protects the gold and the stone and kind of gets a bit of a a hill advantage in terms of, well, it's just nice being on the hill, you know. We'll protect this gold as well, but on Geisha going onto the back wood line, not getting too much more value. Although having said that, I don't know if Jiwei necessarily has enough to deal with this. I mean, the horsemen will be okay. Arbaletier on the back line will get some value. I think the Arbaletier are the ones that are going to need to do the most damage. The horseman number's not looking great. I've got to say, Geisha might just jump on the Arbaletier. Here comes the reinforcements. But this is great for Corvinus, by the way. This little bit of raiding, don't underestimate it. Sure, he may not have got as many villages as maybe would have wanted, but the big thing is that it allows us push coming in from the front. It pulls the army back for Jeanne and allows Corvinus away through to the front door. But I guess good thing he's stone walled up, because that army would have been moving very fast into the middle of the base otherwise. It's starting to stone wall on the west side too. It becomes tricky actually. Gold spots are a little bit hard to find here for Corvinus. That's one thing I love about this map as well. Bear in mind that once you run out your primary golds in the back of the base, you really do have to venture into the middle of the map. There is a second town centre now for Corvinus as well, so whilst he did lose a lot of villagers earlier, be looking to rebuild those numbers quickly. Now Jiwei's population looking very healthy, economy looking very healthy as well, so as long as he takes even trades, he will be coming out on top. Is that a third town centre? I think that might indeed be a third town centre for Jiwei, and it accounts for how many villages he has. He's got so many at the moment. He looks to torch this down with spearmen, and he might actually get this at the end, because, I mean, if he commits to it, he will get it. Arbaletier going to pick apart those spearmen before they get any closer, and, well, they're going to be moving further westwards with the Geisha. But look at the number of units. This is what we said we were scared about the Japanese. That's what they're always possible of doing. Trickling in massive units, just constantly producing. He's got the farming set up for it. And he will be slowly pushing away those spearmen. Again, he's really narrowing the angles of attack here, Jiwei, which is so important. It really manages the game, manages the problems, manages the situation, and Jiwei is managing it well. Arbaletier now are elite status. This is the benefit, of course, getting to Imperial Age. No doubt, I wouldn't be surprised to see Gambesons coming in soon. There's crossbow stirrups for now, which will be increasing the Arbaletier's attack speed by 25%. Has he already got Gambesons? Oh, that's a lot of villages on the gold vein. They're going to be going down, and well, the horsemen are going to be raiding this time for Jiwei. Around the back. A couple of Geisha, but again, Jeanne will be chasing that. Oh, man-at-arms. And Jeanne's elite champions, they didn't get the memo. Jeanne's going to have to do the hard work herself. Corvinus going to go up with the Tanegashima Gunsmith, which is a great landmark, by the way, for the Japanese. Unlocks the ability to get those Azutsu that can do so much damage. Even with the nerf, I still think that they're really incredibly strong. That's the Arbaletier going to dive that town centre. I'm not so sure about that, especially with this is the Shogunate Castle one. I don't think this is advised, especially when you're clumped up like this. What's going on? What is this? I mean, okay, he's going to try and kill some villagers, but this is a bit of a throw over a couple of units now. They aren't cheap. I mean, okay, they're not like hugely expensive, but they do still cost gold. And after a while, gold does start to evaporate on the map, of course. Going to take out the outpost, I guess, the hard way. I mean, that's going to take some time. This is not the most optimal use of these units, but maybe he's trying to throw them away, make some space for some other types of units. Maybe. I should be fine. He's coming in with a horseman now. Three Springles though for Jiwei, so should be good against any siege that might pop out for Corvinus. Not that there is any coming out, and the farms are still it's kind of surprising that with this number of farms, okay, there's more coming, there's more. I was just saying, having a look at the gather rate, 1,500 didn't seem a lot. But there are more farms coming out. Now, bear in mind the Shogunate Castle does do a heck of a lot of damage against infantry and cavalry. Already with an 82 base damage. It's a pretty nice upgrade to have. He's starting to mass up now, Corvinus. Maybe look to just have one big push, because he's going to be faced up against a big army from Jeanne very soon. But again, I'm a little bit concerned about the lack of siege there for Jiwei in terms of actually taking infrastructural buildings out. Maybe a ram or two, or a trebuchet or two could be useful. Now that he's Imperial Age, maybe even a cannon. And does now get that sacred site, so that does give Corvinus a big problem to deal with, right? There's a timer now. So even if Jiwei doesn't necessarily kill his opponent in terms of taking out landmarks and structures, he's got this win condition on the back of this. 10 minutes on the timer. Corvinus is going to have to address not only the army, but he's also going to have to address that sacred site. Coming out with the Unobligation Spearman, that's a lot of units, I've got to say. And well, it looks like he's got the up. Let's just check if he has got the upgrade. He does for the Spearman. That's going to be a heck of a lot of damage. Rockets coming out. They're going to be taking out a lot of the cavalry pretty quickly with the bonus damage they get. But there is a cannon on the field now. Oh, gets taken out, sniped out. Although, was that the cannon that went down? I thought that was a cannon, but it's still alive. Although, probably temporary. If it does get dove upon. But, well, he's holding off for now, Corvinus. Doesn't want to dive in too quickly. Looks like the cavalry are going to go around the back and maybe get some raiding value. Corvinus, though, trying to call that move and move further back to protect the economy. The problem for Corvinus is that the more defensive he gets, the less likely he's looking to decap that sacred site. He does have plenty of time, though. 8.5 minutes is a long time. With 2 cannons on the field, though, would it be long enough? He's going to lose the siege workshop at the front and also some of the houses, which isn't really a big deal. We can make those up pretty quickly. But what is a big deal is if he takes out all the production buildings, no matter how strong his economy, he's going to have to build those production buildings back up again before he gets more units. Cavalry going around the back, and that's a lot of villagers and wood exposed. Spearmen, though, only a handful of them pushing them away. Azutsu on the field, and this is where things become a little bit interesting. That's a lot of spearmen. They're going to throw themselves at the arbaletier. The arbaletier not really using the most of their range, but with Gambison as well. I mean, this is a number of spearmen that's looking pretty deadly, especially with the Adachi upgrade. I mean, this is looking pretty... Not the Adachi upgrade. I've forgotten what it's called now. Yeah, I've forgotten what it's called. But we mentioned it earlier in the cast. Having that extra bonus damage with the spearman. That's not great for the arbaletier. The arbaletier mass is going to go down, it seems. At least over time, although there's a decent number of elite knights coming through. Going to try and get Waterloo. Wait a minute. Pull out their GUA. He's got to get out of there. Should get out of there. He doesn't... Oh, he does lose a couple of the Jean's champions in the end. And that's a big pick-off. It's not to be underestimated. Arbaletier are going to have to focus on what used to be their own friends and comrades. Cannon numbers starting to build up, 4 of them. So GUA is starting to add in that siege. He's got to do well to protect them, because if he does protect them, well, it's going to be difficult for Corvinus to constantly have to replace that infrastructure. Mostly in terms of space, he's got plenty of wood to do it with. Down to 7 minutes. And the question is, where does Corvinus go in terms of trying to deactivate a sacred site? This one on the right side looks to be probably the worst of the 3 options. Maybe the one on the left side is the potential, and look at that. GUA, recognizing that potential, does look to get a keep on that side, and I'll shore up the defenses. Got plenty of stone, by the way. I would love to see a keep further forward as well in the middle sacred site, and then he should be in a really strong position. Corvinus going to lose another barracks. Spearman about to try and chase through, and the cavalry. I mean, that's a lot of cavalry, I got to say, but that's a lot of spearmen. I'd love to see a bit more siege in terms of mangonels. Could be a little bit of a better option against the spearmen. We'll have to see how this trades. That's a lot of spearmen, I got to say. Bear in mind, there's a couple of Onabagation too, going to be fighting over the shoulders of the Japanese forward infantry. Another barracks goes down. It's got a healthy population though, Corvinus, 177. All things considered, amount of pressure he's been under. He's doing well to hold on, but he's being patient. He's just waiting for the opportune moment to push out. But with only 5.5 minutes on the clock, he might be pressured to push out. Here it comes. The knights dive in. That's a lot of spearmen, though. The spearmen are going to brace against them. Holy Wrath ability comes out for Jeanne and Divine Restoration. That's a lot of Zutsu. The Zutsu's going to focus on the Arbaletier. Quite possibly, it would make sense to. The spearman numbers, they're looking so healthy for Corvinus. He does lose a lot of barracks, but it's still more spearmen are popping out. And while this is looking a great fight for Corvinus, he takes out a lot of the elite knights. And that final upgrade there for the Japanese, doing so much damage. And it's just pushing away the knights entirely. The knights just can't get close. There it is. That's the And even Jeanne's Royal Knights can't deal with that. Sacred Site, 4 or 5 minutes on the clock still. Looks like Corvinus making a run for it though. He's going to go for the middle one. Might be going for the west one, but if he's going to be going for the west one, it's going to be met up with a keep, which is not necessarily a problem. He does have a decent number of Ozutsu, and the spearmen, to be fair, these number of spearmen could just try and torch it down. Boiling oil might have something to say about that, but there is no boiling oil for GUA. The bigger concern for Corvinus, if he does try and decap the Sacred Site, leaves his base exposed and open. That'll be tricky. He's still pumping out nice though, GUA. That's not the unit that he wants, I don't think. I mean, he wants it because he's getting it, but there's so many spearmen. There's Ozutsu deploying. There's a lot of siege on the back line for GUA though. They could try and snap out as much as they possibly can. There's Ozutsu. Look like they're focusing on the Arbitrator for now, and well, it does lose one cannon, but to possibly lose a second, we'll have to see. That's a lot of Ozutsu. Oh, look at the spearmen ripping through the cavalry. It's kind of expected, but the Arbitrator not really getting that much value because there's no meat shield in front of them. Cavalry having to back away, and spearmen. For the Japanese, they look so strong at this stage of the game. They're really pushing hard. The real Byakusin, thank you for your subscription. I really appreciate that, my dude. I'm pretty sure the real Byakusin, you're the same Byakusin from Zero Space. Hope you're doing well, buddy. Let me know if you're not, though, because I've just assumed. Anyway, Corvinus trying to push further forward into the middle of the map, and it's going to be pushed away by that Red Palace. He's got to be thinking about where does he go for the sacred sites. Possibly on the left side. The right side kind of open, but take a look at this. He's actually trading. Let's see how much gold is getting in. Pretty decent amount, I've got to say. Look at this. Wait, what? Oh. There we go. 90 gold, not too shabby. All things considered, Corvinus going to have to face off a keep in the front line. It's going to push that way. GUA going to repair, but that goes down so quickly to the Ozutsu. I got to say, even with the recent nerf, the Ozutsu, they just look so good. They still look so good. The splash damage coming out, 130 per versus building. Sure, they lost a bit of armor, but, you know, with a meat shield in front, it becomes very difficult. You protect the Ozutsu, and they still have that huge amounts of value. Pushing away the Arbitrator, even with just spearmen. I mean, cavalry is really not an option for GUA anymore. Loses Jeanne once again, and there's a decent number of well, that Mangonel, one Mangonel should get good value, but might get surrounded. But take a look at the surround on the spearmen. It's so strong that Ozutsu getting so much value. The Arbitrator can't even hold against this number of spearmen. Does lose all the siege. This is not looking good. He's running in with more knights here, GUA. Those guys are going to melt. There's still a strong number of these spearmen. Don't forget, does have the katana bannerman as well. So this is looking a bit rough. An extra 15% damage coming out. Loses the whole siege. That was a huge fight for Corvinus. I mean, that could be a fight that actually means that it has a way back into the game. For long periods of time, he wasn't really in the fight, but now he is. Up to 77 military versus 44, and it feels like GUA. I mean, he's got 2 minutes on that sacred site. He's got to hold on for 2 minutes. I'm not so sure he can with only 45 military, and it's just more cavalry. Those cavalry units, they can't contest this. They're going to try to. Oof, the Ozutsu, they deploy. Oh, that's interesting. That's a smart wall, by the way. I love that wall. He's going to try and protect the gold, although he's going to have to back away now because it's a lot of units. But it's still buying time, right? And the units are going the west side. Now, this keep is up, but it's not so much of a problem. There's no boiling oil. It means the spearmen can just torch this down. And the Honor Brigade. All these melee units are doing great against it, especially with the Ozutsu on the back line. Villagers there. This is going to go down in a heartbeat, right? Villagers looking to try and hold on to that sacred site to allow the knights to come in. The knights going to go on the villagers first, but I don't think Corvinus minds that. As long as he can get some units on the sacred site. There are some spearmen trade. He's noted the trade at least. But that's a lot of archers. He's teched into the archers, which is a nice move there for GUA. Needed a different response than just mass cavalry. Well, the Ozutsu going to try and snipe at the Mangonel. Mangonel's going to go for the Mangonel. Yeah, okay. Didn't deploy on the Ozutsu at least. Needs to keep the Ozutsu numbers alive. Mangonel does deploy again. But again, with only one Mangonel. Okay, it's doing damage. But it's not really enough at this point. Still hasn't been able to decap the sacred site though. Jeanne has fallen once again. The Ozutsu need to take out the siege if they can. Those two Mangonels probably going to be the biggest threat to them. They can always try and walk away in some regards, but he's got to get on top of that sacred site. He's got to do it quickly. They're still halfway capped. Can take out the knights that are there. The spearmen still good numbers coming in from the north. This is looking strong. I mean, the reinforcements coming in decent there for Corvinus. Up to 70 military. He's got a lot of food, and that's coming down to the farming transition. The farm's looking so good for the Japanese. 3,000 food coming in per minute. And this is what the Japanese do so well in the Imperial Age late game. They can just keep spamming out units, and they're doing just that. Even the spearmen taking good trades even. All he needs to do is buy time. He's taking out the sacred side, and that's absolutely huge. GUA's win condition has gone down, at least temporarily. At least that one in the mid-map objective. And now the big problem for GUA is how can he stop this Japanese flood of units? If he can, there's still a way to win the game, but the good thing for him, he did transition into the archers, right? The knights were they kept on dying. Now this could be a way back into the game, but those Zutsu numbers, they're looking really healthy. He does still have a couple of horsemen being produced for the Jeanne, but this is an issue that Corvinus needs to still consider. He needs to back away and consider how does he get access to gold, because he's not getting that much gold per minute, only 200 or so. And the same cannot be said for GUA. He's getting plenty of gold. 1,600 gold per minute. And over time, gold does win games. This is looking to be a bit of a scary army to deal with. Bear in mind, GUA does have a strong economy. This is where things become interesting in terms of population capacity. Because whilst Corvinus does have less villagers, he can get away with it because of the Shogunate Castle's bonus of 75 gather rate on those farms. It means he's got more military potential, more military numbers he can make out to maximize that 200 population capacity. And well, the GUA is always going to have a smaller army. The question is, will he have a better army? Corvinus moving on the right side. He's going to try and torch down the Red Palace. Quite possibly. There's no boiling oil in this. And that's a lot of Azutsu. I mean, that literally takes out in a blink of an eye. Loses the Red Palace, which is, I mean, that's actually kind of crazy. To lose a Red Palace that quickly is actually kind of bonkers. He does activate the Sacred Site for the second time. So that win condition is still alive there for GUA. But the big concern is that he's going to get pushed. And GUA has a decision to make. Does he try and go for a base trade? Does he look to try and take out his opponent? Or does he head back home? That's a lot of Azutsu, I've got to say. I think Corvinus has just done such a great job of keeping them alive. And that could be the big difference maker. Looks like he's actually going to head home here, GUA. He doesn't feel the base trade. He doesn't like it. But again, that's a lot of knights he's still getting, and it's just not going to work against this number of spearmen. He needs something different. It's going to be a meat shield, to be fair. And if he can take out the spearman numbers, though, he will work those knights. Going to try and get us surrounded. Takes the engagement. Will he try and go onto the top of the Azutsu? Quite possibly with the cavalry. No, he's going to engage right on top of the spearmen. This is a bit of an awkward one. Does summon Jeanne's riders, I think that was. Oh, no. She uses the ability on making a unit extra tanky. Which does go down now. 2 mangonels, though. Azutsu do need to back away from the mangonels. Need to respect the mangonels. Mangonels do deploy. But only gets the front 1 or 2 of those Azutsu. Cutting off the trade for now. And he's pushing out from here. Well, GUA. He's defended that push, but will he be able to defend the next? I'm not so sure. That's a lot of units. I think this is interesting. This game is now coming down to who's a stronger economy. And took a look at these farms. Holy moly. That's a lot of food coming in. Corvinus could probably do this all day. It might come to the situation where wood is an issue. Now, I said that gold wins games, but ultimately when your gold is being spent on cavalry and your opponent's going for spearmen, maybe gold doesn't win games. Because it doesn't really feel like the Japanese need it at this point. Which is kind of crazy to think about. I wonder whether man-at-arms would just be a better choice. But GUA, he's not really set up in that way, right? It'll take time to have a big tech switch. The spearmen brace against the cavalry. Cavalry going to dive right on top of that. Does have a couple of mangonels there, which do take a lot of the Azutsu. The Azutsu take out the castle before any of them go down. Divine Restoration comes out for Jeanne, but that's still a lot of spearmen. Cavalry can't take them out, and even with the number of archers, the spearmen are still winning that fight. And if the spearmen can get on top of the mangonels, then that could be problems for GOA. He's still got a lot of banker resources, so can keep producing this army once again, but every fight he takes like this is a costly loss. He does lose the mangonels in the end, and well, one survives, at least for now. Oh, he actually keeps it alive. It's only 7 HP on that, but I'm sure the Azutsu possibly... No, okay, I thought he was going to snipe it, but he didn't in the end. There's another mangonel popping out, and wait, GUA, he might just be banging his head against the wall, and maybe that wall is starting to crumble. because Corvinus' military numbers not looking as great as it once was. He's actually struggling on wood, of all things. The back, there is no more wood to have, and this is the stage of the game where maybe map control really plays a big role and does use the Holy Wrath ability on the villagers. Half of them pretty weak. Maybe it's wood that wins games. And the big problem for Corvinus is how do you deal with those mangonels? There's two of them, it's not sort of earth-shattering numbers, especially when you've got this number of spearmen, but you will start to lose critical mass of those spearmen if the mangonels do deploy. There are 3 of them now. Now that is a big problem for Corvinus. He needs to find a way to get close up to those mangonels. If he can snipe them, that's the best way forward. He's going to look to try and snipe. He does get on top of one. The arbaletier are going to cover around the others. But again, the spearman numbers here looking so good. There's a couple of Onabagation sprinkled in there. Will lose the mangonels, and this is looking rough. Not for the first time. Corvinus is pushing out, and he's winning the fight. GUA having to reset once again, and he's struggling for food this time. He's got about half the amount of food income than the Japanese. Coming in with knights once again, but riding right into those spearmen. And with the Negayari upgrade, these knights, even though they're the French Royal Knights, fully upgraded, this is going to be tricky. He's getting wood on the west, which is super important. That's really what he wants now. The question is, where is Corvinus getting gold? I think he's just primarily reliant on relic gold. Oh, Knight's going to try and deny wood. He doesn't spot the villagers on the left side. Just wait, where are these going to? Oh, hang on a minute. Speaking of gold, he's going to go for the gold in the middle, quite possibly. In any case, he's being pushed on the front lines. Corvinus, he needs military. He needs it now. Down to 150 population versus 200 from Jeanne, and I think this could be the killer blow. Oh, those spearmen going to look to try and defend those villagers. Going to snipe out one mangonel. Pushing on the front line with the Zutsu as well. Zutsu should be able to snipe out that knight. But this could be good night for the Japanese, because there's a lot of units here on the front, and that looks like a mass is going to be difficult to deal with. Will he try and break through and just try and do a base trade once again, Corvinus? Wouldn't put it past him. Does take out the knights, and gold is coming in again for the Japanese. Now, bear in mind... Wait a minute. He's trying to get a keep there, G-Ways. Just not enough villagers. Those spearmen are going to take them out, and he's going to pull away with 3 and keep them alive, at least for now. The arbaletier are going to pick up those spearmen if they can. But again, I love this play by Corvinus, by the way. He's making sure that any reinforcements that come out are being blocked off. That's a smart play. He's going to break through himself, and he should have more than enough to deal with this to defend his advantage. Of course, he's got production at the back. The Onabagation absolutely ripping through those units, and I mean, there are 3 villages. Will the keep go up? I'm not so sure. It looks like it will for now. Oh, it will for now, with the 2 mangonels at least. And he's really starting to flood in the front. Red Palace was rebuilt, but it's going to get taken down very quickly once again. Especially the Ozutsu doing that. There we go. That's a lot of farms being idle, though. Wait, there's only 1 villager garrison inside. Did he just lose a lot? Corvinus just lost a heck of a lot of villagers. Down to 45 villagers on that back line, and that's absolute decimation. I don't think there's a way back now. Even if he pushes this army back, he can't reproduce his army. He's lost so many villagers on the back. I think he didn't notice. Those knights just killed everything. He's trying to make one big push in the middle. He does have a massive Ozutsu. He could try and landmark snipe, quite possible. But I gotta say, GUA should be seeing this one out. Keep will go up in the end with only 3 villagers building it. But Corvinus down to 46 villagers. Gonna try and take down the guild hall. He should get that. Maybe takes out the town center. He has already got the red palace. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Everything is on one screen. Can he actually do this? It's all going to come down to the next minute. If he snipes out the town center and the guild hall, that will win the game, but it doesn't feel like he has enough. At this time, the knight numbers, even against the spearmen, should do okay. Does use the Holy Wrath ability, Jeanne, just to push away those spearmen, and this is it. Coming in from the north, he recognizes that the threat of a landmark snipe was always there, but there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Corvinus taps out. It was a great game of Age of Empires 4. He managed to push out. He managed to decap the sacred site, but it just wasn't enough in the end, and a massive decimation of those villagers in the north side farming transition. But Corvinus saw out the game for GUA. Hope you guys enjoyed the casted game. Take care, and see you next time.